NCERT based single sentence questions, neural control and coordination. Let's start. The functions of the organ and organ systems in our body must be coordinated to maintain homeostasis. The process through which two or more organs interact and complement the functions of the another is called coordination. When we do physical exercises, the energy demand is increased for maintaining an increased muscular activity. An increased muscular activity. The supply of oxygen is also increased. The increased supply of oxygen necessitates an increase in the rate of what? Respiration and heartbeat and increased blood flow via blood vessel. This process is an example for coordination process. When physical exercise is stopped, the activities of the nerves, lungs, heart, and the kidney gradually return to their normal condition. Thus, the functions of muscles, lungs, heart, blood vessel, kidney, and other organs are dash while performing physical exercises. Other organs are get quick coordination while performing these particular physical exercises. The neural system provides an organized network of point to point connections for a quick coordination. The endocrine system provides chemical integration through hormones. In this chapter, we will learn about the neural system of human mechanism of the neural coordination like transmission of nerve impulse, impulse conduction across a synapse, and the physiology of reflex reaction that the endocrine system provides what here? That hormones. Neural system of all animals is composed of highly specialized cells called neural system of that all animals composed of highly specialized system of cells called neurons, which can detect, receive, and transmit different kinds of stimuli. Neural organization is very simple in lower invertebrates. In case of lower invertebrates, neural organization is very simple. Type of neural organization which is composed of a network of neurons is observed in Hydra, phylum Nidaria. In Hydra, phylum Nidaria, you'll find neural system is better organized in in dash where a brain is present along with a number of ganglia and neural tissue, that is in case of insects. The vertebrates have a more dash neural system, developed neural system, more developed neural system will find in vertebrates. The two major parts of the human neural system are the number one, central neural system, the central neural system which we call CNS, central neural system, and the second, peripheral neural system, peripheral neural system. The dash include the brain and spinal cord and is the site of information of processing and control. Central neural system. The dash comprises of all the nerves and of the body associated with the brain and spinal cord. The PNS comprises of all the nerves associated with the PNS comprises of all the nerves of the body associated with the CNS, central nervous system. Next, the nerve fibers of the dash are the nerve fibers of afferent fibers and efferent fibers. The nerve fibers are of two types, nerve fibers of higher vertebrates are of two types, which we can say afferent fibers and efferent fibers. The dash nerve fiber transmit impulses from tissues or organs to the CNS, afferent nerve fibers. The dash fiber transmit regulatory impulses from the CNS to the connected peripheral tissues or organs, efferent nerve fiber. PNS divided into two divisions called somatic and autonomous nervous system. Somatic nervous system and autonomous nervous system. The dash neural system of PNS relays impulses from the CNS to skeletal muscle. Somatic. The Nash neural system transmit impulses from the CNS to the involuntary organ and smooth muscles in the body. Autonomic nervous system. Autonomic nervous system. The autonomic neural system is further classified into sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic. Visceral nervous system is a part of peripheral nervous system that comprises the whole complex of nerves, fibers, ganglia, and plexuses by which impulses travels from the central nervous system to the viscera and from the viscera to central nervous system. A neuron is a microscopic structure composed of three major parts, namely, what are the three major parts in the neuron? Cell body or cyton or soma, dendrites, and axon. The cell body contains cytoplasm with the typical cell organelles and certain granular bodies is called Nissel's granules. Short fibers which branch repeatedly and project out of the cell body are called dendrites. The parts of neuron which contain Nissel's granules are cell body or cyton, we can say, and dendrites are having Nissel's granules. Fiber transmit impulses towards the cell body are dendrites. Long fiber of neuron whose distal end is branch, that is axon. Each branch of dash terminates as bulb-like structure called dash which possess synaptic vesicle containing chemicals called. Each branch of axon terminates as a bulb-like structures called synaptic knobs. Bulb-like structures called synaptic knobs which possess synaptic vesicles containing chemicals called neurotransmitters like acetylcholine. Fibers transmit nerve impulses away from the cell body are axons. Fiber transmit nerve impulses to a synapse or to a neuromuscular junction are axons. Based on the number of axon and dendrite, the neurons are divided into three types. They are multipolar, unipolar, and bipolar. Multipolar, unipolar, and bipolar. Neuron with one axon and two or more dendrites is called multipolar neuron. Neuron with one axon and one dendrite is called bipolar neuron. Neuron whose cell body with axon only, that is unipolar neuron. Neurons found in the cerebral cortex. In cerebral cortex, we'll find multipolar neurons. The cerebral cortex contain multipolar neurons. Retina of eye contain bipolar neurons. Found in the embryonic stages only, unipolar neurons. Unipolar neurons are in embryonic stages only. Cerebral cortex contain multipolar neuron. Retina of eye contain bipolar neuron. Based on the presence or absence of myelin sheath, the axon types are myelinated axon and unmyelinated axon. Myelinated axon and unmyelinated axon. The myelinated nerve fibers are enveloped with dash type of cells, Schwann cells, which form a myelin sheath around the axon in PNS. Dash cell myelinates many axon with myelin sheath, that is oligodendrocytes of the CNS. Myelin sheath in central nervous system secreted by oligodendrocytes. Unmyelinated nerve fiber enclosed by Schwann cells. Unmyelinated nerve fiber enclosed by Schwann cells. In PNS, we are talking. A cell that does not form a myelin sheath around the axon and is commonly found in the autonomic and somatic cells, somatic nervous system. Unmyelinated nerve fiber is enclosed by a Schwann cell that does not form a myelin sheath around the axon and is commonly found in autonomic and somatic neural systems. The gap between the two adjacent myelin sheaths is called nodes of Ranvier. Dash nerve fiber are found in spinal and cranial nerves. Spinal and cranial nerves contain generally myelinated nerves. Myelinated nerves. Aggregation of cell bodies in PNS is called. Aggregation of cell bodies in PNS is called ganglia. Aggregation of cell bodies in CNS is called nucleus. Bundle of nerve fiber or axon in PNS is called nerve. Bundle of nerve fibers in or axon in CNS called central nervous system. They are called tract. Neurons are excitable cells because their membranes are in a polarized state. Why the membrane of a neuron is polarized? Because different types of ion channels are present on the neural membrane. The dash of neural membrane are selectively permeable to different ions. Ion channels of neural membrane are selectively permeable to different ions. When a neuron is not conducting any impulse, that is, when a neuron is not conducting any impulse, that is, in resting state. Okay, then membrane is comparatively more permeable. Membrane is comparatively more permeable to dash ions. Axonal membrane. Wait a minute here. The axonal membrane is comparatively more permeable to potassium ions and nearly impermeable to sodium ions. In resting stage, the neural membrane, let me remove this similarly. In resting stage, the neural membrane is impermeable to negatively charged proteins present in the axoplasm. Negatively charged proteins in the axoplasm. In resting state, the axoplasm inside the axon contain high concentration of resting state. Axoplasm inside the axon contain high concentration of potassium ions and dash proteins and low concentration of dash ions. Negatively charged proteins are present, negatively charged proteins and low concentration of sodium ions. In resting state, the fluid outside the axon contain a low concentration of potassium ions and high concentration of dash sodium ions, and thus form a concentration gradient. They form a concentration gradient. The ionic gradients across the resting membrane are maintained by active transport of ions by the sodium potassium pump. The ionic gradients across the resting membrane, wait a minute, across the resting membrane are maintained by active transport of ions by sodium potassium pump. The dash pump transports 3 dash ions outwards for 2 dash ion into the cells. Sodium potassium pump, which pump? Sodium potassium pump transport for every 3 sodium ions, for every 3 sodium ions, it is sending every 3 sodium ions, it is sending outwards for 2 potassium ions into the cell. Outer surface of the axonal membrane possesses a positive charge because of the presence of more sodium ions, which ions, and less potassium ions in comparison with axoplasm. Inner surface of axonal membrane possesses a negative charge because of the presence of less, which ions? Less sodium ions and more potassium ions and negatively charged proteins. Electrical potential difference across the resting plasma membrane is called as resting potential. Is called as resting potential. Amount of stimulus energy required to conduct an impulse is called threshold. All the stimulus energies above the threshold can be conducted as impulse, and all the stimulus energies below the threshold cannot be conducted as impulse. The principle is all or none principle. Influx of sodium ion from ECF to axoplasm through axolemma results in charge increases. Efflux of potassium ion from axoplasm to ECF through axolemma results in charge decreases. When a stimulus is applied at site point A on the polarized membrane, the membrane at the site A becomes freely permeable to dash. Membrane at the site A becomes freely permeable to sodium ions. This leads to a rapid influx of dash followed by the reversal polarity at dash site. This leads to a rapid influx of sodium ions followed by the reversal of the polarity at A site, that is outer surface of the membrane becomes negatively charged and the inner side become positively charged. When a stimulus is applied at site A, results rapid influx of which ions? When a stimulus is applied at site A, rapid influx of sodium ions from ECF to axoplasm through axolemma, and the polarity of the membrane at the site A thus reversed. Hence, we call depolarization. Depolarized. Electrical potential difference across the plasma membrane at the site A is called action potential is called action potential. Electrical potential difference across the plasma membrane at the site A is called action potential, which in fact termed as a nerve impulse. At site A, due to stimulus, the axon membrane has a which charge? They have negative charge on the outer surface and a dash charge on its inner surface, and what it is called. And at the site A, stimulus, the axon membrane has a negative charge on the outer surface and a positive charge on its inner surface, and this status is called polarized. It is called depolarized status. At sites immediately ahead to the site A, the axon, that means site B, membrane has which charge they have? In site B, the charge is going to be positive on the outer surface and a dash charge on its inner surface. On inner surface, they have negative charge. And it is called as polarized. Site A in depolarized state and site B immediately ahead to the site A. Site B is there in polarized state. Site A depolarized, site B in polarized. As a result, a current flows on the inner surface of from site A to site B. Site A to the site B, which what we call it as site B, to complete the circuit of current flow. Site A in depolarized state, site B immediately ahead to the site A in polarized state. As a result, current flows on the outer surface from site B to site A. Site B to site A to complete the circuit of current flow. Hence, the polarity at the site is reversed and action potential is generated at site B. Thus, the impulse generated at action potential generated at site A arrives at site B. The sequence of conduction of impulse is repeated along the length of the dash, along the length of axon, and consequently impulse is conducted. The rise in stimulus induced permeability to sodium is extremely dash. The rise in stimulus induced permeability to sodium is extremely short-lived, and it is quickly followed by a rise in permeability to potassium ions. During propagation of impulse at site A, after the influx of sodium ion, within a fraction of second, dash and dash diffuses the membrane and restores the dash. During propagation of impulse at site A, after the influx of sodium ions, potassium ions, within a fraction of second, potassium diffuses outside the membrane, and restore the resting potential of the membrane at the site of excitation, and the fiber become once more responsive to further stimulation, next stimulation. A nerve impulse is transmitted from one neuron to another neuron through junctions called synapse. A synapse is formed by the membranes of a dash synaptic neuron. Membranes of a presynaptic neuron and a postsynaptic neuron, which may or may not be separated by a gap called synaptic cleft. There are two types of synapses, namely, there are two types of synapses, namely electrical synapse and chemical synapse. A dash synapses, the membranes of pre and postsynaptic neurons are in very close proximity. Electrical synapse. At a dash synapse, the membranes of pre and postsynaptic neurons are in very close proximity. Electrical synapse. Sorry. At, uh, at a dash synapse, the membranes of the pre and postsynaptic neurons are separated by fluid-filled space called chemical synapse. Electrical current can flow directly from one neuron to the other across electrical synapses. Chemicals called neurotransmitter are involved in the transmission of impulses at chemical synapses. Transmission of an impulse across dash synapse is very similar to the impulse conduction along with a single axon, electrical synapse. During chemical synapse, axon terminals contain dash filled with the dash. Axon terminals contain vesicles filled with the neurotransmitters. Impulse transmission across an electrical synapse is always faster than compare with the chemical synapse. When an impulse or action potential arrives at the axon terminal, it stimulates the movement of the dash towards the membrane. When an impulse arrives at the axon terminal, it stimulates the movement of synaptic vesicles towards the membrane where they fuse with the plasma membrane of presynaptic membrane axon terminals and release their neurotransmitters in the synaptic cleft. Electrical synapses are rare in our system. Electrical synapses are rare in our system. True or false? True. The neurotransmitters released from the presynaptic neuron bind to their specific receptors present on the dash membrane, present on postsynaptic membrane. Okay, this binding opens dash, allowing the entry of dash, which can generate a new potential in the dash neuron. This binding opens ion channels. This binding open ion channels, allowing the entry of ions, which can generate a new potential in the postsynaptic neuron. Do you know how the presynaptic neuron transmits an impulse or action potential across the synaptic cleft to the postsynaptic neuron? Yes, by neurotransmitter. The new potential developed in the postsynaptic membrane by neurotransmitters may be either dash or dash, may be either excitatory or inhibitory. And called as excitatory postsynaptic potential and inhibitory postsynaptic potential. Central information processing organ of our body, which acts as command and control system, is brain. Dash controls the movements and balance of the dash functioning of dash organs. Brain controls the voluntary movements. Balance of the brain controls the voluntary movements, balance of the body, functioning of vital involuntary organs like lungs, heart, and kidneys, thermoregulation, hunger, thirst, and a circadian rhythm. We call 24 hours rhythm of our body, activities of several endocrine glands, and human behavior also. Dash is also the site for processing of vision, hearing, speech, memory, intelligence, emotions, and thoughts. Brain. The human brain is well protected by the skull. Inside the skull, the brain is covered by cranial meninges. Human brain is well protected by the skull. Inside the skull, the brain is covered by cranial meninges. True. Outermost layer of meninges, dura mater. Outermost layer of meninges is dura mater. A very thin middle layer of meninges layer, arachnoid membrane. Inner layer of meninges which is in contact with the brain tissue, pia mater. Subdural space is present between dura mater and arachnoid membrane. Space present between the pia mater and arachnoid matter is called subarachnoid space. The brain can be divided into three major parts. What are they? Forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. The three major portions of forebrain are cerebrum, thalamus, and hypothalamus. Cerebrum, thalamus, and hypothalamus. The major part of the forebrain is cerebrum. Major part of the human brain is cerebrum. A deep cleft divides the cerebrum longitudinally into two halves, which are termed as left and right cerebral hemispheres. Hindbrain comprises of pons varoli, cerebellum, and medulla oblongata. Cerebellum and medulla oblongata. Cerebral hemispheres are connected by a dash of nerve fibers called a tract of nerve fibers called corpus callosum. Bundle of nerve fibers in the central nervous system is called as tract. Layer of cells which covers the cerebral hemisphere is called dash and is thrown into prominent folds. The layer of cells which cover the cerebral hemisphere is called cerebral cortex and is thrown into prominent folds. Cerebral cortex is referred to as the gray matter due to its grayish appearance. The neuron dash are concentrated in the cerebral cortex and giving the appearance of gray color. The neuron, which part of the neuron? Cell bodies and dendrites, which are having Nessels granules. Reason for the grayish appearance of cerebral cortex is due to the presence of Presence of Nissl granules. Gray matter of cerebral cortex contain. Gray matter of cerebral cortex contain cyton, dendrite, and non-myelinated axon. The dash is located between the thalamus and hypothalamus of the forebrain and pons of the hindbrain, midbrain. Cerebral cortex contain dash areas, motor areas and sensory areas, and the large regions that are neither clearly sensory and nor motor function. Association area, we can say large region that is association area, neither sense nor neither clearly sensory and nor motor in function. A canal called dash passes through the midbrain. A canal called cerebral canal. Cerebral canal passes through the midbrain, which we call that as a cerebral aqueduct. Dash regions of the cerebral cortex are called as association areas, are responsible for complex functions like intersensory association, memory, and communication. Large regions that are neither clearly sensory, nor motor in function. Neither clearly sensory nor motor in function. Part of hindbrain, which consists of fiber tracts that interconnect different regions of the brain. Pons. Fibers of the tracts are covered with the myelin sheath, which constitute the dash of cerebral hemisphere, inner part of cerebral hemisphere. They give an opaque white appearance to the layer and hence is called white matter. The dorsal portion of the midbrain consists mainly of four round swellings or lobes called corpora quadrigemina. Cerebrum wraps around a structure called thalamus. Brain stem is formed by midbrain and hindbrain. Major coordinating for sensory and motor signaling in brain, that is thalamus. Part of hindbrain which has very convoluted surface in order to provide the additional space for many neurons, that is cerebellum. Very important part of the brain which lies at the base of the thalamus is hypothalamus. Part of hindbrain which contains centers to control respiration, cardiovascular reflexes, and gastric secretions. Medulla oblongata. The dash contain a number of centers which control body temperature, urge for eating and drinking. Hypothalamus contain number of centers which control body temperature, urge for eating and drinking. Part of forebrain which contain several groups of neurosecretory cells which secrete hormones called hypothalamic hormones. That is hypothalamus. Part of hindbrain which is connected to the spinal cord. medulla oblongata, the inner parts of cerebral hemisphere, and a group of associated deep structures like amygdala and hippocampus form a complex structure called limbic lobe or limbic system. Limbic lobe or limbic system. Medulla of hindbrain is also called medulla oblongata. Along with the hypothalamus dash involved in the regulation of the sexual behavior, expression of the emotional reaction, limbic lobe is involved in the regulation of sexual behavior, expression, emotional reactions like excitement, pleasure, rage, and fear, and motivation. Largest part of the brain, cerebrum. Second largest part of the brain, cerebellum. Prosencephalon, mesencephalon, rhombencephalon of the brain, respectively. Forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain are called prosencephalon, mesencephalon, and rhombencephalon. Corpus callosum is called colossal commissure. Corpus callosum is also called colossal commissure. Corpus callosum is made up of a axon. In cyton, if cyton, dendrites and unmyelinated axons are accumulate in brain, such composition can make gray matter. Area of the nervous tissue which is composed of myelinated axons only, gray matter. Myelinated axons only, that is white matter. Type of nerve fiber which corpus callosum is composed with, myelinated axons. Location of corpus callosum with respect to the cortex, below the cortex. Many folds which are present in the cerebral cortex are called gyri. Deepest grooves present between the folds of cerebral cortex are called fissures. Shallow grooves present between the folds of cerebral cortex are called sulci. Functional areas of cerebral cortex are sensory, motor, and association areas. Part of hindbrain which consists of nerve fiber which form a bridge between the two cerebellar hemisphere, that is pons varoli. Part of brain which bear lateral ventricles are paracine, 1 and 2 ventricles, that is in cerebral hemispheres. Part of brain which bear third ventricle are diaphyseal, that is in diencephalon. Part of brain which bear fourth ventricle are myelocele, that is in medulla oblongata. The two paraceles are connected to the median diacele individually by foramen of Monroe. Third ventricle connected to the fourth ventricle with the help of iter or aqueducti of Sylvius. Iter or aqueducti of Sylvius. Iter or aqueducti of Sylvius or cerebral aqueduct passes through the midbrain and connects to the third ventricle to the fourth ventricle. You must have experienced a sudden withdrawal of a body part which comes in contact with objects that are extremely hot, cold, pointed, or animal that are scary, poisonous. Entire process of response 2A, which nervous stimulation? Peripheral nervous stimulation. That happens voluntary or involuntary? That happens involuntarily. Okay, involuntarily. That happens involuntarily. You must, that the entire process of response to a peripheral nervous stimulation that occurs involuntarily without conscious effort or thought and requires the involvement of a part of the central nervous system is called reflex action. The reflex pathway comprises at least one afferent neuron and one efferent neuron, one afferent neuron and one efferent neuron. The dash neuron receives signals from a sensory organ. Afferent neuron receives signal from a sensory organ and transmit the impulse via dorsal dorsal nerve root into the CNS at the level of spinal cord. The Nash neuron then carries signals from the CNS to the effector, efferent neuron. Route followed by a nerve impulse in the production of reflex action is called reflex arc. Neural pathway involved in the reflex action are called reflex arc. Neurons participate in reflex action are neurons participating reflex action are afferent neuron and efferent neuron, then internumical neuron. Neurons which are concerned with the reception and reflex action are called afferent neuron. Neuron considered as exciter in reflex action, efferent neuron. Connection between the afferent and efferent neurons is possible by interneuron. Afferent pathway of reflex arc is from sense organ to spinal cord. Efferent pathway of reflex arc is from spinal cord to effector organ, muscles generally. Cytons of afferent neuron of reflex arc are located at sense organs. Axons of afferent neurons of reflex arc enters into spinal cord via dorsal root. Cytons of efferent neurons of reflex arc are located at gray matter of spinal cord. Axons of efferent neurons of reflex arc enters into effector. Arrange these in sequence with respect to the reflex arc. A. Sense organ. B. Effector. C. Afferent neuron. D. Efferent neuron. E. Dorsal root of spinal cord. F. Ventral root of spinal cord. Arrange these in sequence with respect to reflex arc. Cyton of afferent neuron, cyton of efferent neuron, dendrite of afferent neuron, dendrite of efferent neuron, axon of afferent neuron, axon of efferent neuron, and interneuron. Arrange these in sequence with respect to reflex arc. Afferent neuron, efferent neuron, internumical neuron. Location of interneuron, gray matter of spinal cord. Dendrites of interneurons are having synapse with Dendrites of interneurons are having synapse with axon terminals. Axon terminals of afferent neurons. Axon terminals of interneurons are having synapse with dendrites of efferent neurons. The neuron which receives signal from a sense organ and transmit the impulse via the dorsal root of spinal nerve to the CNS is afferent neurons. Neuron which carries signals from the CNS to the effector through the ventral root of spinal nerve is efferent neuron. In a knee-jerk reflex, stimulus taken by muscle spindle and a sharp message to the motor end plates by spinal cord. Right path of reflex arc in between these two actions. The muscle spindle afferent neuron, interneuron, efferent neuron, motor end plate of muscles. Have you ever thought how do you feel the climatic change in the environment? Yes, that is through sense organs. That is through sense organs. So let's start sense organs. Sense organs questions we'll see in the next video. Thank you.